The 2025 football season is almost here. College football is getting closer and closer. I mean, it's not almost here, but it'll be here before you know it. There's a lot going on in spring football right now as we head closer and closer to fall football, what we're all really excited about. We're going to talk about some of the players going into this 2025 football season. I'm not trying to hype up these players. I'm not trying to make them sound like they're doing better in spring football or anything like that. But just kind of putting expectations, what we would hope to see from these players going forward. This is going to be a several part series. This is part one of a series where we talk about different players and what their ceiling is for this season and so much more. We're going to talk about it, y'all, here on the Sooner Spotlight. Sooner Nation, welcome in to another episode of Sooner Spotlight, your all-access pass for all things Oklahoma Sooners athletics. I'm your host, Josh Mahler. You can find me on X, formerly known as Twitter, at RealJoshMahler, and follow the show over on Instagram at Sooner Spotlight for all updates on the show and so much more. We try to keep you up to date on all things Oklahoma Sooners athletics. Yes, we may dive into certain sports a little bit more than others at times, but we try to keep you informed on all things Oklahoma Sooners. Sooner Spotlight is a member of the OU Insider content lineup. So if you would, head over to OUinsider.com today, get signed up, and stop missing out on all the inside scoop and so much more. OU Insider is an amazing community, an Oklahoma sports community where you get to be a part of the action. You get to be a part of the discussion. It's not just reading an article, and I see a lot of the criticism is out there as OU Insider just gives you a little bit of news faster than the rest. And so why not just wait a little bit longer and still get the same news? That's not entirely true. OU Insider is a very great place with insiders that actually know information about behind the scenes, and they're able to give you a lot more information than what you would see outside of OU Insider. And on top of that, it's just totally worth it to be a part of a community like OU Insider and what they offer. So go over to OUinsider.com today, get signed up, and check out why it is the greatest platform out there. And you know what? I'll pull this up real quick too, just because this is something totally unplanned, but might as well pull this up. We asked Grok, the X AI, formerly known as Twitter. Let me see if I can get this pulled up. We asked Grok, what is the top site for comprehensive OU sports coverage and recruiting intel? And Grok told us, based on available information and user sentiment, OU Insider, oklahoma.rivals.com, stands out as the top site for comprehensive University of Oklahoma, OU, sports coverage and recruiting intel. It provides in-depth updates on OU football, basketball, and other sports with a strong emphasis on recruiting news, including commitments, transfer portal activity, insider analysis from experts like Parker Thune and Brandon Drum. The site offers premium content such as detailed recruiting notes, game recaps, and fan forums, making it a go-to resource for the Sooner fans seeking both broad coverage and specialized recruiting insights. Its affiliation with Rivals Network further enhances its credibility and depth of athlete data. That's something that we did just kind of as fun, and looking at even what AI understands. OU Insider is the best place to go. So go get signed up today. Don't miss out on anything more OU related, OU sports related. Get signed up at OUinsider.com today. Let's go ahead and jump into it, guys. We've got a lot to get to. First, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. And then, as always, if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, give us a 5-star review, follow and subscribe over on those platforms as well. Helps us out greatly. And if you would, jump over to our merch shop. You can go over to our merch shop on Soonerspotlight.com/store, I believe it is. The link is down in the description below. But if you go over there and check out the merch, we've got all kinds of new stuff that we're trying to drop constantly. It's tricky because we have to be careful with what graphics we do put on shirts, because we're not affiliated with OU sports or in any way. I do coverage for OU sports, but I'm not affiliated with OU. And so I have to be careful. So I know I've gotten some requests of, why can't you put this on the shirt? I have to be careful about what I put on the shirts. It has to be something that I created and something original from me. And so that's kind of why we can't just put whatever we want on the shirts. But if you would, go support the show today by going over to Soonerspotlight.com. check out the merch shop, check out everything that we do. It helps us out greatly. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it because we've got some fun stuff to talk about, and it's closer and closer to football season. We've got spring football going on right now, so we get to actually talk a little bit about football. And like I said earlier in the stinger, today we're going to dive into OU football and the roster going into 2025 and discuss what to look for in each player. And like I said, I don't want this to be something where we're hyping up players that aren't going to end up performing well. That's not my intention. I'm not trying to make you think that there's a certain player that's going to be better than what they are going to show us on the field. None of that. I'm just giving you my thoughts on players that, man, I really hope that they can live up to the hype and live up to what I think they're capable of. And so that's what we're going to do here today. In part one today, we're going to go through my top 10 guys that I'm looking for. And it was really hard to pick a top 10. So I don't really know if I want to label it as that, but that's what we're going to go through today. It's just Sooners that are poised to have a breakthrough season, whether it be this season or not. I'm hoping that it's this season. Because first and foremost, I'm an Oklahoma fan. I do some coverage for Oklahoma, but I'm still a fan. I'm going to be biased, so bear with me as we go through this. But let's first start off with number one, and that is John Mateer. John Mateer is a dude. And I'm not going to go so far into talking about his aura and how much he resembles past players. I'm not going to go there, although I will say, I'm just going to put this out there. Everything that's being said about how much energy he brings to the program and how similar he looks to certain players, that's being said by people within the program, very close to the program, who were around those players. I'm not going to go there. I'm just saying that I know that there's a lot of frustration about that. There's nothing been said that, to my knowledge, at least from OU Insider or from here on Sooner Spotlight, that has talked about John Mateer living up to that hype. There's no one that's trying to put that pressure on him, anything like that. Just stating the obvious that, hey, he kind of brings an energy that certain players in the past have brought. That's one thing that gets us excited about John Mateer. The other thing is, go back and look at his highlights. I mean, his highlights speak for themselves. He's an amazing talent, and he has what it takes to be a good quarterback and to be a good quarterback at Oklahoma. I think that's something that's very exciting to look forward to and seeing what he could bring to the table this year. He's a transfer from Washington State who doesn't, for those of you who don't know, you must have been living under a rock. John Mateer, the new quarterback, assumed to be the starting quarterback. I just have to imagine that that's going to be the case. And we'll talk about Michael Hawkins later on. But John Mateer, it's very obvious because of many reasons. He comes into a system that he knows. He knows this system like the back of his hand, and he knows the offensive coordinator, with Ben Arbuckle coming over with him, who also brings an aura to this program. If you haven't seen clips from social media, go check out Oklahoma's social media pages. They've done an amazing job of displaying just behind the scenes, and OU Insider has done it pretty well as too. I think Brandon Drum and Parker Thune, they've been pretty close to some of that action and posting some pictures, videos, and things that you can just see. The team feels a lot more energetic this year. Now, there are some injury concerns still, and that's something to be a little skeptic about. And I totally understand fans that do have those skepticisms about how the injury report's going to look when we come down the stretch. But as of right now, I just think that John Mateer is a crucial part. And this is an easy one to put there first on the list, because John Mateer, like I said, he comes from Washington State with Ben Arbuckle and the quarterback's coach, who I'm not going to try to butcher his name at this moment because I don't have it written down and I'm going to say it wrong. So he comes in with a couple of guys that he knows their system. He knows what's going on. And this is even more crucial in a time where this Oklahoma offense needs to step it up. They just need to be above average. Last year, they were ranked in the 90s to 100s. And to the 120s in many key crucial stats. And that's something that says a lot, because this was a defense that we had a lot of hope for. We had a lot of high expectations from this defense, and we have just as high of expectations going into this season, even though we lost guys like Billy Bowman and Danny Stutzman being the biggest one. We even lost Ethan Downs. We lost a few guys over there. But we still have a lot to build around on that defensive side of the ball. So if we can improve that offense to just looking average, they don't have to do anything special. You just can't turn the ball over as many times as Oklahoma did last season. And you just can't blow opportunities when the ball is given to you and they turn the ball over within the red zone. At one point, I think within the 5-yard line, at least within the 10-yard line against Tennessee, twice in a row where they turn the ball over for you right there in scoring position, and you turn it right back over the very next play. And we just can't have that kind of stuff going on for the Oklahoma Sooners this upcoming season. And I think John Mateer and Ben Arbuckle together, working this together, because the quarterback is the most important position on offense. This is crucial for Oklahoma to have John Mateer come in there. And from what I'm hearing, he's acting as an offensive coach, helping guys understand their assignments. Hey, listen, guys, I know this system. This is where you should be. And Ben Arbuckle can kind of step back a little bit and focus on other things that he's seeing, where John Mateer is able to kind of help a little bit with that. So this is huge. This is crucial. High expectations from John Mateer this season. Do we expect him to win a Heisman? Do we expect him to lead us to a national championship or even an SEC championship? No, but we do expect him to be a key piece of this offense, making this offense better. And if he is doing that, then we can expect this team to be contenders of the SEC, contenders of a playoff run. It's a lot to expect from a 6-6 season, 6-7 if you're including the bowl loss to Navy of all teams. It's a lot to expect from this team to go in there and to be contenders for anything. But I think that we can be there with John Mateer at the helm and with what he's contributing to this offense. Going on and talking about the next guy up, Gentry Williams, a fourth-year junior, I guess it would be, because I think he's redshirted. Gentry Williams, we know what he's capable of. We know what he's able to do on defense. And this cornerback room can be extremely elite. This can be a lockdown when you're talking about guys like Eli Bowen, who stepped up big time this season. Really the entire DB room, because then, of course, you got Gentry Williams. If he's able to contribute at a full capacity, his health and his overall injury stance right now is worrisome. I don't know where he stands. I haven't really looked too far into it. I haven't asked a whole lot about it. But I'm expecting Gentry Williams to be healthy enough to play this season. And if he's able to play at 70% the entire season, just giving 100%, but because of his injuries, he's only at 70%, we've got a very good cornerback in Gentry Williams. That's how good he is. We've seen that from Gentry Williams. We know what he's capable of as Oklahoma fans. We saw that in the Texas game a couple of years ago, and how big of an impact he can be in that passing game. Locking receivers up one-on-one, he's a very good corner. And I think that he's one of those guys that could be overlooked early in the season. Maybe if we're talking about a Michigan early on in that Michigan game, even going on, and I forget the schedule lineup, but going on and seeing a couple of those games, those early SEC games, Gentry Williams could possibly be a guy that's overlooked. Just throwing that out there. I think he's a great cornerback. He could be a guy that a quarterback's not paying attention to, and he throws it his way, not realizing how good this guy is because he didn't play last season. There's not a whole lot of tape on him. His potential is through the roof. And Brent Venables talks about him all the time. He talked about him last season, how much he wanted him to get into the game last season. We've got a couple of guys that moved on from that secondary, but even going back, Robert Spears-Jennings coming back, and then you've got Peyton Bowen. So you got the Bowen brothers back there in the secondary. We've got plenty. And there's even others too that are showing glimpses, and we'll talk about them later on. I don't want to throw too many names out there because I'm sure we will talk about them. But yeah, Gentry Williams is absolutely amazing. And some analysts, some not even analysts, I'm thinking some inside sources from within the program have even said things about how limitless his potential is. When he's on the field, he is able to do so much with a huge wingspan, with the ability, the athletic ability to stay close with receivers and lock down receivers. There's a very high potential for Gentry Williams if he's on the field. So we have to hope for him to be healthy first and foremost. But if he's on the field, we have a lot of expectations out of Gentry Williams. Going on to Kip Lewis. Kip Lewis, after stepping up in 2024 quite a bit with standout plays, I think you go back to obviously Auburn, Alabama, those two games being big because he had big time plays. Of course, the Kip 6s being the biggest ones. This is a guy that you have to throw on this list of high potentials, guys that we're expecting a lot out of, because Kip, he's really primed to lead this linebacker corps, after Danny Stutzman left. And of course, Jaron Kanak realizing that it's not a good fit for him was a good thing, and I'm sure he's probably going to make this list soon as well. A guy that I wasn't even thinking about putting on this list. But anyways, Kip Lewis, after Danny Stutzman's departure and seeing what that linebacker corps would look like, Kip Lewis is obviously the guy to step up in that role. Is he going to bring the energy? Is he going to bring that aura that Danny Stutzman brought to the table? Probably not, because Danny has some big shoes to fill, and I'm not sure what size shoe he wears, but the metaphorical size shoe that he wears, huge, and it's going to be very hard to fill those shoes. But Kip Lewis could fill those shoes in leadership and in just overall play on the field, leading by example. That's the biggest thing that I think Brent Venables and this defensive staff is looking for. And so, Kip Lewis is absolutely one of those guys that we have to watch this season. And there's a lot of big talk. There's a lot of big talk about awards that Kip could possibly win. He's a guy that has high potential, and we know that he has high potential because of what he did last season. What he did last season, especially, again, going back to those two games against Auburn, Alabama, changing the momentum in those games. I think the Alabama game was a little bit less of a momentum changer, but it was more or less just stealing any chance for Alabama to gain momentum. And in that Auburn game, 100%, that was a game winner right there. With that pick six, that Kip 6, if you will, that was a game changer. That completely changed the outcome of the game in a lot of our minds. So I think Kip Lewis is definitely one of those guys for us to keep our eye on and to look forward to this upcoming season in 2025. He's got extremely good athleticism and playmaking ability. We know what he's capable of. We know that he's able to read a quarterback's eyes and drop into coverage if he has to, but he is also very good at just being a linebacker. Can he sit back and plug the hole? Can he stop the run? That's what we need to see from Kip Lewis a little bit more this season. We just didn't need him to do that as much last season. There's some other linebackers that we'll talk about as well to try to fill that role a little bit for Danny Stutzman in terms of run stopping and going a little bit further there. Going on, talking about a guy that I might get some heat for bringing this up, but I think a lot of Oklahoma fans probably agree with me in adding him to this list because I kind of expect something from him. And I hope Oklahoma fans expect something from him. And that is Michael Fasusi. Michael Fasusi, a 5-star 2025 signee. This is one of the biggest recruits for Oklahoma, especially on the offensive line. It was definitely one of the biggest recruiting wins for Oklahoma. And there was all of this speculation that he was going to go elsewhere, that there was Texas A&M jumping in and putting their names in there for Michael Fasusi, for them to try to steal him away. And they were throwing big numbers at him. They were going and supporting him at different games when he was in high school and things of that nature. But if you were an Oklahoma fan that really paid attention, it was always outside sources saying that, hey, it looks like they might steal him away. There was a lot of nervousness from other sources outside of Oklahoma sources. There was, I think your big Oklahoma sources, especially, OU Insider, if you paid attention there, they weren't really worried about Texas or Texas A&M stealing Fasusi away. it just felt like it clicked. It felt like it was the place that he wanted to be. And it felt like there wasn't anything that someone was going to do to steal him away unless they threw an extremely big number in terms of NIL over to him. I might be wrong. Maybe there was a little bit more of a possibility of that changing. But then when it came to signing day and everyone was all excited about, all right, who's he going to pick? Who's he going to pick? He made it very clear before even making his official pick by putting Oklahoma decorations out all over the place at his signing day party. There was all kinds of stuff it was just funny to watch, because here this guy is, he's supposed to be possibly picking another team. Hey, Oklahoma, watch out. Texas is going to come in here and steal your recruit. Texas A&M might steal him. I think there might have been a couple of other teams that threw their hat in the ring, but it was very evident that entire signing day, he's not going anywhere. Going on from the recruitment, his size, he's 6'5". I didn't write that down. Should have. Almost 320 pounds. This is a big dude, and I've seen videos of him training. I haven't been able to see him in person, but I've seen videos of him training, and the way that he moves, this is a big dude that's moving like an athletic mid-sized linebacker. Maybe not quite that quick, but I mean the comparison, the equivalent when you take of how much more he's moving. I mean there's a lot of athleticism with this guy, and he's huge. This is a guy that is built to be the lead offensive lineman for an offensive line as legendary as Oklahoma. Thinking back to the days of Bill Bedenbaugh's prime days with Cody Ford. Going back to Creed Humphreys, there's a ton of guys that Bill Bedenbaugh has trained up and pushed off to the league. Even going back before that, going back to Trent Richardson and seeing what he did for Oklahoma. This is the type of caliber that you see from Michael Fasusi, and he's a 5-star guy. He's a guy that, hey, let's be honest, we haven't had luck with 5-star guys recently. A lot of the recent 5-stars that Oklahoma's gotten have not turned out. They always have big hype around them, obviously coming out of high school. But Michael Fasusi being an offensive tackle and Oklahoma needing that on the line, I don't know how much he's going to play this year. I'm not really hearing anything about him looking like he's a sure thing for the offensive starting, the offensive line, the 5 starting offensive linemen, nothing like that. I'm not hearing anything like that. But I really hope he is, because I know what his potential is. And maybe I'm wrong for saying that. Maybe his potential doesn't matter, and we just need to focus on getting the best guys in there. And I just hope that he is one of the best guys, because I know the potential there. I can see it from how big and athletic he is. He's definitely a player to watch, with the Oklahoma offensive line being next in line to the biggest problem last season. I think obviously your quarterback play was a big problem, but a huge part of the quarterback play was your offensive line. The turnovers was a big problem, but again, another big part of that might have been a little bit on your offensive line, not putting the blame totally on them, but sometimes the quarterback got to a little too quick. Maybe it forced the quarterbacks to freak out a little too soon, which isn't totally on the offensive line, but that is partially the reason behind everything. I think a lot of what Oklahoma's offensive struggles were really boils down to the offensive line. So Michael Fasusi, big time guy. I'm very excited to see what he ends up contributing to Oklahoma this upcoming season. Whether he's on the field or not sure. Do I hope he's one of the starting 5 linemen? Yeah, because I don't want to let that guy go, and I see a ton of potential out of him. Moving on, we've got Dominic Williams, defensive tackle. He transferred from TCU a season ago. Came in, looked really big, really good at TCU, and there was an obvious reason why Oklahoma wanted him to come in. In 2024, he started all 12 games, got 33 tackles, 4.5 tackles for a loss. He got himself a sack, several QB hurries, I think 2 recorded QB hurries, which is big. Also got himself a forced fumble. I mean, the stats pile up for this guy. The stats are huge. He's a guy that we saw a lot of potential from last season. When he was on the field, you saw a game changer. When he was on the field, you saw a guy that can really make a difference. And, I think that's what Oklahoma needs. They need a guy that's on the field making a difference and doing something special. And Dominic Williams is that guy on defensive tackle. As a defensive tackle, I think he has a lot of potential. Again, looking back to what he did last season and how much he progressed throughout the season, I thought he looked better and better. And returning to this defense and learning this defensive scheme just a little bit more, I think he brings something to the table that we really need over there on the defensive line and that defensive front, specifically in that center. Again, we need to be able to stop the run here in the SEC. We need to be able to stop the run against Michigan early on in the season. So plugging that middle is huge. That's very crucial for Oklahoma. And Dominic Williams returning to this defensive line, I think it's going to help the presence up front a lot. I think he's extremely vital for OU's defense. I know there's some other guys that we could talk about, maybe David Stone. I think there's other guys that we could probably put up there as a top priority over Dominic Williams, but I think I'm looking for a guy that I know has the potential, that showed it to me last year, that I know I can put my faith in right now as it stands. And I feel like, to me, Dominic Williams is one of those guys. Seeing him stand at 6'1", 320 pounds. I mean, he's a big dude. He's athletic. He's strong. He's tough. And seeing how much he's grown, both physically and mentally, learning the game, learning this new system to him, it was huge. And so I think he's going to be very vital for OU's defense. And then I think his experience in the SEC, I think will be big. And OU's defense, too, depending on what stats you're looking at, they ranked in the top 20 in most key stats. This was a very good defense, and Dominic Williams was on that defense. He knows that defense, and he was a big part of that defense. And so I feel like I've got a lot of hope for him, a lot of high expectations. And so his potential, I think, is very high. I'm looking forward to seeing Dominic Williams perform on that defensive front, specifically in that middle, trying to congest the lane, do something big for Oklahoma, and looking forward to him this upcoming season in 2025. Going on to the running back room, and I know the running backs got a lot of flack last season, and it wasn't necessarily a specific running back. It wasn't necessarily that we weren't happy with who was in the game all the time. It wasn't that we don't like a certain player playing or anything like that. It was just that there was a big consensus of, why are we playing this guy in this position? Why are we playing this guy and putting him up the gut when that's not his game? Javante Barnes, bounce him outside, he was gone. And I don't want to talk about him just yet, but Gavin Sawchuk, not really utilizing him much at all last season. That felt really strange that he was listed as a starter, but then hardly ever played. Barely got any touches. Then, of course, Taylor Tatum, which I want to talk about Taylor Tatum and potential. I'm looking at Taylor Tatum going forward into this season because he's a guy that we know is capable of big things. I believe he had somewhere around 5 yards per carry last season. And when he touched the ball, he was electric, and he could do such huge things when he had the ball in his hands. But the biggest concern with Taylor Tatum was ball security issues. We used to say something in high school, and my family laughs about it because there was some parents that didn't understand what this term meant, and they just screamed it for everything all over the place all the time at junior high and high school games. Our football coach always screamed PBS, perfect ball security. That's something that needs to be screamed and taught at Taylor Tatum because he coughed the ball up a lot last season. But we knew that we saw flashes of brilliance from him. We saw these glimpses of what he's capable of, what he's able to do. And that's what makes me feel so hungry to see him perform at the level that we know he should be able to perform. So I'm very excited to see what he's capable of, what he's able to do next season, this upcoming season. But, he was young. If memory serves me correctly, he was a freshman. I think he's a sophomore this year. I can try to look that up just to double check. But, I think Taylor Tatum is a guy that if we can put the trust in him to hold on to the ball, if we can see him show a little bit more ball security, then this is a guy that is very much capable of doing big things. He's fast, he's athletic, he's strong. He likes to lower that shoulder. He likes to deliver the boom. We've seen that from him several times in the past. But it's just that when he does that, coughing the ball up, seeing the ball pop out against Alabama, a huge drive driving down. I believe it was the opening drive against Alabama, and Taylor Tatum has a big run and makes contact, and the ball pops right out, gives it over to Alabama. And I was right. He is a sophomore. So last season, him turning the ball over that much as a freshman, I can look past that and say, hey, he's a sophomore going into this season. He had a lot to learn from. He's got a coach that I believe in DeMarco Murray and what he's able to do as a running back. Obviously, we know that he's smart. He knows the position. And I believe in him as a coach as well, even though we may not have seen a whole lot from him as a coach to really put our faith in him. I believe in him because he's a Sooner. He loves this team. He's willing to do whatever it takes to make this team succeed and to make this team worth its while. So, I think I trust what he's doing with this program. I trust DeMarco Murray. And I trust him as a coach to get on guys like Taylor Tatum that have such a very, very high ceiling, huge potential, and getting on them and telling them, hey, we need to see this. We need with Taylor Tatum, it's literally just hold on to the ball and we can give it to you way more. But if we give it to you a few times and you cough the ball up a pretty high percentage of the time, then we're not able to keep on giving you the ball because we can't put that risk in your hands. So we know that we have the potential with him. Hold on to the ball, and he could be an electric player. That's a guy that I want to see get the ball more next season. I know other guys are out there as fan favorites. I know Xavier Robinson turned on the Jets out of nowhere last season. He didn't get the ball at all to close out the season, especially in that Navy and LSU game after a huge game against Alabama, wondering where the heck did this guy come from, and he still doesn't get the ball. But anyways, Taylor Tatum is another guy that I'm very excited about. I want to see more from him. I want to see what he's capable of, what he's able to do if he can hold on to the ball. PBS, that's what we can scream at the TV all season long. Going on, a guy that's been making his media rounds. I thought about even getting him on the show, just haven't reached out, tried to see if I could get him on. That is Kendel Dolby. A returning guy, a guy that knows this defense, and he's actually got a crucial role in this defense as that cheetah. That's what we call it, that cheetah. That's what this defense calls it. And he had a crucial injury, terrible injury, had a lot of rehab to go through. He's feeling good. From what I've heard from him, from what I've heard about him, he's feeling good. He's still being careful, not getting out there in full contact or anything yet, to my knowledge. But his versatility in that hybrid cheetah role, it makes him a critical piece to this defense because he's a guy, he loves getting sacks. He likes interceptions, but I've heard it from him. He likes getting a sack more than he likes getting an interception. That's something that he said as a young guy, and he has said it here recently too. I know my guy, Jay Smith, he had him on, was talking to him and asked him like, all right, what do you like more? Do you like getting that interception, dropping back into coverage, getting an interception, or do you like getting a sack? And he says, I like getting a sack. I like knowing that I just drove them backwards, which is silly to some of us, but I love it. I love the aggression. I love the fact that he likes putting the quarterback down. And if you can get sacks too and get that quarterback a little riled up, get him a little worried about getting hit again, then you can really get into his head and you can do a lot of great things. And so I think Kendel Dolby, we're awaiting. There's 2 KDs on the team. We'll talk about the other one from Oklahoma State. But I think Kendel Dolby, and looking at what he brings as a cheetah, if he can get healthy and he can feel 100% again, this is another guy, again, that if he's only playing at 70% capacity, if he's just like out there 100% healthy, that's what we want, 100% healthy, but he's only able to give 70% of his capability because, that's what he doesn't want to get injured, he's still going to be a dang good player. That's how good he is. Of course, I want every player to be able to give 100% of the time, be 100% healthy, but we're hoping that he's healthy, and we're hoping that he's just able to get out there and make a difference. And we've got a lot of very good talent on this defense, which leads me into the next one being R. Mason Thomas, defensive end, the disruptor in the backfield, the guy that can just explode off the edge. If he's not coming off the edge, he's still making a difference on the field, but he doesn't give that excitement. He doesn't have his name called as much. He doesn't have that huge play that ends up in a strip sack or just a sack in general. He doesn't have his name called a whole lot, but we love seeing him come off the edge. And he's another returning piece that is a standout player on this defense. And I think R. Mason Thomas's ability to disrupt the opposing offense in many different ways from the edge is going to be a huge central point in Brent Venables' play calling in 2025. Because if you're able to get around the edge as fast as R. Mason Thomas is able to, why not just keep on doing it? Of course, you don't want to expose that middle, that interior. So every once in a while, we've got to draw him back. But if you can have that threat on the outside, keeping them contained, is if you can keep everything between the hashes, you have a very good chance, a very high chance in winning football games. And that's what R. Mason Thomas brings to the table. I don't really have to talk a whole lot about R. Mason Thomas. I would love to talk about how amazing he is. I don't have to, because his play speaks for itself. And I think it's very obvious why he's in my top 10 guys to watch for in this upcoming season. This next one might be a little, curious. You might be a little curious why I threw this next guy in here for a guy to watch for in 2025, because we don't really expect to see him on the field a whole lot, if much at all, this upcoming season. But I want to see his mentality. I want to see how much he's bought into this program, and I want to see how much he progresses and how much he learns this upcoming season. And that is our presumable backup quarterback. He was kind of a backup last season, took that starting position, wasn't able to hold on to it. But we saw a lot of growth from Michael Hawkins last season, and we saw resilience. We saw a guy that was never willing to just give up. We saw a guy that always wanted to do the best thing for this program. And I love the mentality that we get from him. And I think this season we're going to see more of that. And you know what? From what I've seen, from what I've heard behind the scenes, he is showing a lot more of that. He's showing a lot more of just willing to be a part of the room, willing to contribute in any way that he can. Michael Hawkins Jr. is an absolute freak athlete, and we know that. We know that he's capable of doing big things, and I want to see him one day. I want to see him just light a defense up. I don't think it's going to be this year, and for obvious reasons. John Mateer knows this offense. Ben Arbuckle knows that he can trust John Mateer to run this offense. That's just going to be the way it's going to be this year. In my opinion, I think that's just where it's at. But that doesn't mean that Michael Hawkins can't grow, learn this system, grow, become a better player, and next season take over for this program that he loves. This program that his brother came to, his father used to play for, and now he's playing it here as well. That there's a love for this program with this guy, and that he wants to do this program right. And so I want to see, we're not going to see him out there as a starting role. I think he could push Mateer for that starting role. I think he could push and be competitive there. And I want to see him compete for that starting role. That's what I want to see. I don't want to see him just compete to be a backup. I want to see him compete, and I believe, based on his family tradition, if you will, his family, if you want to get a little Hank Williams on me, Hank Williams with me, his family tradition of just competing and trying to be the best guy on the field at all times, sacrificing everything for your team. Like we saw several times last season. We saw that in the Tennessee game. We saw that in the Auburn game. I think he did that quite a bit, even in that Navy game. Showed us some glimpses of what he's capable of and what he's able to do. So, no, I don't think he's going to be the starting quarterback this season. I'm okay with that as long as he's okay with that, and as long as he's okay with still competing, still trying to be the starter, and not being demoralized by not becoming the starter, but keeping on fighting on. Because what he's able to do as a backup, knowing that we have a secure guy back there, And then also just knowing that we have a guy that loves this program, that wants to come and fight for this program. So I want to see Michael Hawkins Jr. progress this season. I don't know how much we're going to see him on the field, but then it leads us to a very good spot going into 2026 if he can just grow in this system and help his teammates succeed. Moving on to the last guy here in my top 10 guys to watch out for. And again, I don't really like it as the top 10. It's not that I'm ranking them really. It's just some guys that I've thrown together that I think are guys to watch out for. But number 10 on this part of the list is Javonte Barnes, because he was leading OU in rushing yards last season after a few really good games. He had a really good Maine game, but then again, you have to look at that and be like, yeah, that was Maine. Of course he's going to have a good game there, but you saw the potential from him there in that Maine game because of not what he did, but how he did it. And I think that's what I'm looking at in that Maine game. It was that you saw how he cut the corners. You saw how he got to the edge. You saw how he was able to make guys miss. And yeah, it wasn't SEC caliber defensive guys that were missing, anything like that. And I get it. I don't want to hype up Javonte Barnes more than he deserves, but I do think that this is a guy that we know can be a key player. And Javonte Barnes, I think, has a high potential. I see potential out of him. If you put him on the edge, stop running him up the middle. He's not an up the middle kind of guy. Put him on the edge. Put him outside the tackles. Put him outside and put him in space. Let him work. I think Taylor Tatum is another guy that, if you put him in space, I think catching out of the backfield. A lot of these running backs, it's not that they're bad running backs. It's not that they're not capable of being key running backs in the SEC or for Oklahoma. It's just the fact that these are running backs that are not being used in the proper roles. So I want to see these guys being used in their proper roles. And I think Javonte Barnes, as long as he comes back healthy and shows consistency, he can be a breakout star this upcoming season out of the backfield. Again, using him on the outside, getting him into space. And that's what I want to see from Javonte Barnes. I think he is an incredible player. I have a lot of high hopes for him. I think his potential is extremely high. And I want to see what he's capable of. I want to see what he's able to do. So he's the 10th player, and that's how we're going to wrap it up there with Javonte Barnes. And this will be a series. We'll go on to part 2, maybe part 3, 4, 5, however many it takes for us to get through a lot of guys, because I think there's a lot of guys that they're going to have big roles for this offense, for this defense, for this overall team here going into 2025. So we're gonna end it there with 10. We'll come back and do a little bit more in this series as we dive into this roster as we get closer and closer to the 2025 college football season. Hey Sooner fans, did you enjoy this video? Well, go ahead and hit that like button and go ahead and hit that subscribe button. What are you doing if you've made it this far and haven't already? You should be able to find that subscribe button over here. And then if you want to see full episodes, we've got those up here and clips right down here. So go check that out. But we thank you all so much for all the love, all the support. We'll catch you next time. Boomer.